Welcome to the Karen Kenney Show.
Hey, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. I'm super duper excited to be here. And today I'm going to dive into, okay, let me start here. Let me back up. Okay, so you know how I end every show with some version of wherever you go, leave yourself and the people and the place and the animals and the environment better than how you found it, right? Wherever you go, may you be a blessing, or may you and your energy or whatever be a blessing, your presence be a blessing. And I want to dive into this concept of leave it better. Leave it better. And I want to talk about why this matters and the kind of impact that you consciously choosing to leave a place or a people or an animal or whatever better than how you first encountered it. What an incredible, powerful practice that is, but also what a difference it can make in the lives of people. So I'm going to share a couple of things that have been on my mind. And it's so interesting that when things in my life happen in what I might call a cluster, right? Like where several little, they could be random stories or people or whatever, but when they come together with a common theme, I always know, like, I just feel in my heart of hearts, like, oh, this is my STOTJ, right? Spiritual team on the job. This is my spiritual team just kind of giving me enough instances that my thick brain picks up on, like, oh, this is something I might want to talk about. So thank you to my divine helpers for helping me. Okay, so this whole leave it better. I'm going to share the different little glimmers or pieces that happened that inspired me to do a whole episode about this. Okay, so you may have heard me on other episodes. In fact, I'm laughing. I wasn't even thinking about this, but I just looked down. So I'm wearing All Day Running Company, right? That's my t-shirt. I'm wearing a yellow t-shirt with white lettering if you're listening and not watching. And it says All Day Running on it. And All Day Running is a company that Jesse Itzler is a partner in. And All Day Running, they sell gear and they do events. They do this one big event called Running Man. It's really fantastic. And I just adore Jesse. I'm in a program with him, a year-long program, because first of all, he cracks me up. I love his energy. I love his enthusiasm. I love his attitude. So just like I always say to people, I think coaches should hang out with other coaches and mentors should have mentors. And I think people should invest in themselves and invest in their education. For me, what I really tend to invest in is being able to experience how another person's brain works, to be able to experience another person's POV, their point of view. I think it's really powerful. And that's why I like to invest in a program or whatever, is to go like, I want to know how they're thinking. I want to see how their brain and their mind works and what their approach is. So anyway, so I'm in Jesse's roundtable. And it's so funny. One of the other reasons why I joined Jesse's roundtable is that I had a program called The Alchemy. And you guys know that I'm obsessed a little bit with King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So in my program, like last year, when I did the alchemy in the round table, and then Jesse all of a sudden came out and he's like, oh, I'm doing this thing called the round table. I'm like, oh, again, STOTJ, I was on that sucker. But the reason why I'm talking about Jesse so much is that he also is partners with this other guy named Marc. And they do an event called 29029, which is basically they rent a mountain somewhere. It could be, like a ski. Think about like where we go skiing in New Hampshire, right? They'll find like the highest mountain that is like has a ski lift and stuff like that. And they do this incredible event where people have to summit the mountain the same amount of times, like up and down. They ride the gondola down, but they hike up it, they walk up it as many times to equal as if they are summiting Mount Everest, which is 29029. And they have to climb that altitude or do that enough times to equal that. And they have to do it in 36 hours. Okay. So because Jesse is partners with, so it's he and Marc, and they created this event. And in Jesse's program that I'm in, Marc was one of the guest speakers. And the reason why I'm bringing him up is what I loved something that Marc had to say that really points to this leave it better that I'm diving into today. And he was talking about how in his company, because Jesse's kind of like, I don't want to say he's a silent partner, but he's a non-operational partner, right? And one of the things that Marc was saying is that he has created a culture, the way that he, in his own life, and of course, the guy's not perfect and he admits this, but he really does his best in his business, in his company, in his culture, and in his own life. He has this attitude, this culture of what he calls, quote unquote, care the most. Care the most. And so he wants to leave his clients, his customers, his coworkers, his team members, the people that he hires, the people that he works with. He wants to leave them with a sense of being cared for. And like, who doesn't want to have that experience? And I think it's one of the things that I find so lacking in a lot of businesses these days, in a lot of companies, and a lot of places that I go to, whether it's the grocery store or Target or whatever. And I'll get into that in a minute. So I'm really loving the idea, this idea of caring the most. And I want to give you a couple of examples and why I'm talking about this as a spiritual principle and as a spiritual practice. And I think it's something that every single one of us that is listening can apply in some way in our lives. So always, I don't tell you what to do or what to think. I mean, sometimes I might tell you what to do, meaning if I'm teaching a tool or something like that. But for me, this is more interesting in me just kind of planting seeds and dropping some things and having you decide which ones you might pick up and use, or which one resonates with you, or which one you think like, oh yeah, this could be wicked helpful to me in some way. And I want to apply this sucker. Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. So my veterinarian, my vet, Dr. Jim McCannon, I call him Dr. Jim. So Dr. Jim, Great Bay Animal Hospital. So he's been our veterinarian. He's been my veterinarian, I should say, for like 28 years. And I love him. I love him. And he is an hour away from me. And yet we drive. I mean, when you think of all the animals I've had over the years, I mean, he's been my guy, right? And now he's our guy. And he and his team have always been so fantastic. And Dr. Jim is a guy that I know he cares about me. He cares about my animals. He cares about my furry kids, right? And he goes above and beyond. And recently, some of you may know that we recently had to say goodbye to one of our furry kids, Peanut. And little Peanut was just the happiest, sweetest little guy. And saying goodbye to him was so brutal. But Dr. Jim and his team, you know, the way that they helped us kind of, first of all, making that decision and then the day of and having to do the whole process and stuff like that. That above and beyond is already wonderful. And the way that they have a separate room for that kind of procedure where which has its own entryway. So you're not having to like walk through the waiting room with like snot and tears running down your face and have everybody looking at you. And they do this thing where they light a candle. They light this little light to let the other people in the waiting room know that, you know, somebody in their care is saying goodbye to a beloved furry friend. So it's just so thoughtful and there's so much care put into that, but just his level of care in general was amazing. And then afterwards, you know, they'll say, you know, do you want us to, you know, send you a little paw print in clay? And some people will use that where they bury ashes or they do whatever. But they sent us in the mail. I'm going to hold this up. So if you're not watching, you're not going to see, but they sent us these little paw prints. Like, oh, I'm going to try not to start falling all over my microphone. Oh my God. So they sent us his two little paw prints. And they say right and left, and you can see them in ink. It says little feet. And the thing about Peanut is his feet look like he was wearing little spats. He had like, you know, black little feet with white on them, little tap shoes. And he would get so impatient because he loved to eat. So when he wanted you to hurry up and feed him, he would like rock back and forth and tap his feet. And I would call it tippy tappy. He would do tippy tappy with his feet. So just seeing this, getting this in the mail they mailed us this beautiful little thing. And then they also sent us, you guys, and I'm holding up this tiny little vial. It's this tiny little glass tube with a little cork stopper, and inside is his hair. And like, oh my God, oh my God. I got that in the mail and I just thought I was going to fall over because it's so kind and it's so thoughtful. Because when you're saying goodbye to them, you know, there's so much like, yeah, of course you can keep their collars and you have certain things, you know, their favorite toy, whatever. But to get these as an after, as a follow-up is just so incredibly thoughtful. Okay. And the impact that it had on my heart. And of course, let's just strip the emotion away from that for a minute. It's just good business. It's just smart business because it made me feel like, oh, they really care. And they sent a personalized card where everybody who's ever met Peanut, helped Peanut, saw Peanut during his visits over, 14 years. They all each signed it with a personalized little note about what they remembered about Peanut. And oh my God, it's just so incredible. And so it's just smart business too, because it makes you be like, yeah, these are my people and they know my animals and they care about us. And you see all the different handwriting on the card and it's beautiful. Okay. So it's just a powerful thing. Okay. And then the second thing is there's a company called Chewy. And I want to share this because these are companies that have a culture that show me that they care and how we can take these principles from these businesses, but also apply them to our daily lives. Because we all know, right? We've all, I think, been with in friendships, in relationships with people who you can tell that they give a shit. You can tell that they care and they go above and beyond. Okay. So there's another company called Chewy. And Chewy sells like dog food, dog toys, dog pharmacy, like whatever you order it through the mail. So we've been using them for a really long time. So you basically just go online, order the food, and it shows up at your house. It's fantastic. So Peanut, because he had a couple of medical issues, he was on a special food. He was on a special diet. So his food was very expensive. And it only, we had to, constantly order it because he, would go through like a can a day, like blah, blah, blah. So we had recently ordered some of his food. And like I said, it's not cheap, And so when he passed, I was like, oh my gosh, now I have all this food and we don't need it. And I don't want it to go to waste. And it's a specialized food. It's a pharmacy food. So I can't just like give it to a friend or something like that. So I called Chewy. Actually, I didn't call them. I was using their, chat with a representative thing. And so I chatted with them and I said, what should I return the food? Like, what do I do with it? And they said, no, just keep it, donate it to a shelter or somebody who could use this specialized food. Obviously the cans and stuff hadn't been opened. And then they issued me a refund. They issued me a credit. And I just thought like, man, just how incredible and how helpful. Because it's like I said, it's a chunk of change. It's not like cheap, right? So you're getting that. And the woman or the person, right, expressed in the chat box how sorry they were. It was just so incredibly sweet. And like a couple of days later, I had to order a supplement for Scooter, right, for Peanut's brother. So I got this little package in the mail and I thought the package was the supplements. And I thought like, wow, that got here really fast. I just ordered this, right? Like, how did this get here so fast? And I open up the box and inside the box, there's a card and it says my name on the front. It says Karen. And there's a little rainbow at the bottom. And I'm like, what's this? And you open it up. And again, it's this beautiful card from the representative who I was in the chat with. And they wrote this beautiful little note about Peanut. And then I see inside that there's this little like bright blue, like almost like this midnighty blue, with a little rainbow on it, velvet pouch. And it's heavy. And I'm like, what is this? So I open up the pouch and I look inside and I slide out into my hand. I'm going to hold it up. So you guys, if you're watching this, you're going to see it. But if you're listening, I want to describe this stone. It fits perfectly in my hand. Think of it like the size of like a small, not a tiny little round potato, but like think about like a golden potato, but like a small one. It's super smooth. This stone is so smooth and soft. And when I saw this, I literally, when I opened up that bag and slid out whatever was in the bag into my palm, I burst into tears. Like I burst into tears. So I'm holding it up. So they sent this little rock, and somebody has hand painted on this rock Peanut's name. And then there's a pink hat. And then there's another pink hat with white lettering. And then somebody drew an actual peanut on it. So it says peanut with a peanut. And it's like a little memory stone. When I tell you I saw this, I was so moved. I was so affected by the time. Like somebody had to sit down. Do you know how many customers Chewy has? Like, do you know how many people have like get food from them and like have animals that pass? And I'm like, oh my God, is there like a whole department of artists and creatives who sit down and hand paint these stones? I just about lost my mind and I burst into tears. And my sweetie's like, what? And I had put it back. I said, because I wanted him to have the experience of opening it. I said, look at this. And he opened it up and it came out and his eyes like watered up. And I was like, oh my God, talk about caring the most. Talk about creating a culture for your customers, but also the attention to detail, the neatness of this, that the person who sat down to do this had to really take their time and give a shit about me and Peanut and how we were feeling in our loss. And I just thought, man, this is a company that's doing it right. This is a company that has an attitude of leaving people better. And that's the thing. How they found me in that moment was sad and grieving and missing my animal, missing my furry beloved kid. You know what I mean? And how did they leave me? They left me so much better off, right? Than a few minutes before. I was like, wow, it really touched my heart. And it made me think also of a company called Sweetwater. And I love doing shout outs, right? And I hope you take something from this video also, this podcast, that you feel maybe inspired or enthused to do a shout out for some people, you know, like whether it's on social media or you send them a little note or you send them a thank you card handwritten in the mail, because I'm telling you, that feels fantastic and amazing, old school. Maybe you'll feel inspired to do that. But there's a company called Sweetwater that my sweetie orders a lot of his music gear from. And what they do that I think is so brilliant is when you sign up with Sweetwater to work with them, you literally get assigned a customer rep. And we have had the same customer rep for like a really long time. And my sweetie's, I think his name is Brandon or Braden. It's one of those. And so what Sweetwater does is whenever they send you whatever you're ordering, it could be a pedal, it could be cables, it could be like a jack, it could whatever you're getting, right? Your podcast, like, you know, whatever thing, your mic. They send you a little bag of candy in the box. And it's usually like a fireball, a root beer barrel, some Smarties, like whatever, like just like, you know, Tootsie Rolls, like whatever it is. And some of them, you know, aren't vegan, so we don't eat them. But my sweetie has like a sweet tooth, so it's great. He gets his little candy fix, and it's so cute. Okay, so one time my sweetie got a box with his gear in it, but there was no candy, and he was totally joking. Because what always happens is after you order something, they always follow up with you and they ask you, how's the product? Do you have any questions? Is there anything I can help with? Just let me know. Like their customer service is next level. It is so good. The way they care about their clients, the way they follow up, the way they check in, they send you little snacks, right? It's like so fantastic. Any issue, you give them a call, they're on it. If they don't know, they'll get the answer for you, right? So my sweetie just jokingly, because the rep reached out to him and he said, how's the pedal or how's the thing? And my sweetie was, wrote back and said something like, it's fantastic. It's great. Thank you. He's like, but I didn't get any candy in this box. Like, haha, like just being funny, right? Because they've built a relationship over the years. Whenever it is, I don't know if it's 2 weeks later, a month later, whatever it is, my sweetie orders something. Okay. We get the box, we open it up, and I'm like, what is going on right now? Right now, I'm the kind of person, like, I love to count things. Like, that's not that surprising if you know me. So, like, when I created my sweetie's tip jar for his gigs, If I'm at one of his gigs and his tip jar is out at the end of the night, one of my favorite things to do is to count all his tips and to take all the dollar bills or the $5, the 20s, whatever he's got, and arrange them in the right order. Like this was something I love to do as a waitress. It's like all my stack of cash as a waitress was always neat, always denomination, like always in the right order, always facing the right direction, right? That's like a big thing with me. So I'm always like, can I count your tips? And he's like, yes. Okay. So I love counting things. So we get this box and I open it up and I'm like, what is happening? And so I'm like, I started pulling out these bags of candy and I counted them. And I shit you not. He sent us like, it was either 30 or 32 little mini bags of candy, just kind of like that wink of letting us know, like, hey, I heard you. We're following up. And like that was his joke back to us. And I was like, oh my God, I love these guys. I love their playfulness. I love their sense of humor. I love that they send my sweetie sweets. You know what I mean? And I was just like, this is a company that gets it. They've created a culture of care the most. And it's so impactful. And of course, it makes us want to keep doing business with them. Okay. Now, why this is important. You're like, who gives a shit? Great. You had some great customer service experiences. Cool. Why does this matter? It matters because it's showing us that this is a company that doesn't just take their core values and like toss them around. Like, you know how people say a thing, but they don't follow it up with their actions? You know how there's that dissonance, right? When you're like, well, you're saying you love me, but you treat me like shit. Like you say you're my friend, but then you talk behind my back, right? We have these moments in our life where we're like, well, you say you care, but, you know, all signs point to like no or maybe not. So when there's a company or a person with that kind of congruence, it creates rapport, it creates trust, it creates that what we call the know, like, trust factor. It's like, I come to know that I can trust you, that you're actually going to follow through on what you say you're going to do, that you actually care about me and the fact that I'm giving you my hard-earned money. But it also applies, you guys, to our personal relationships. And when we are going to be in a friendship or an intimate sexual partnership, whether you are dating, married, shacking up together, like whatever your situation is, your friends, your even like your siblings, like wouldn't it be nice if the siblings all kind of operated under the care the most culture? Like what kind of a world would we live in if everybody kind of adopted the care the most? Because I'll tell you what, I'm going to share some examples where you can kind of tell that somebody doesn't give a shit. And they are the opposite of the care the most culture. Right now, I just kind of feel like in a lot of places, there's kind of almost like this attitude of like giving up, of like, why bother, of, you know, like not doing your best and who cares. And one place, we've all seen it. I guarantee you, we've all seen it. If you belong to any kind of like local public gym, okay, you'll see it in action, right? So most gyms, they ask as a courtesy that you wipe down the equipment when you're done using it. Whether that's, you know, using a lat pull down, whether you're on, you know, a stair stepper or the treadmill, whether you're doing like low rows or leg press, whatever you're doing, when you and your sweaty ass get off that machine, take a moment to grab, they supply it. They supply the paper towels, they supply the spray. All you got to do is wipe it down. It's a courtesy, not only to the gym, but to the next person that's getting on the piece of equipment or using the piece of equipment after you. And look it, can we just be honest? Some people's hygiene is a little questionable, right? I've seen people come out of a bathroom stall and not bother to wash their hands. I've seen people come out of a bathroom stall and they wash their hands, but they make a friggin' mess. They just put water and soap and shit everywhere. And then they throw their, like, you know, their paper towel away and it doesn't quite make it in the bath. You know what I mean? Like people just leave a mess behind them. And I'm the person I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I get it 100% right all the time, but by and large, you can count on it. If I'm using a bathroom, I'm going to try to leave it better than how I found it. I go gunk, 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 get a bunch of paper towels and wipe down the sink around it because I care. And I don't just care about me. I care about the person coming up behind me. And I've worked enough customer service and hospitality jobs in my life to know that some poor person, I shouldn't say poor, some person is going to have to come up behind all of us who are using this and clean up after us. So why would I want to make their job harder? Right? So try to wipe things down. But you'll also see people not putting their weights back. They unrack a bunch of weights, put it in their spot, and then when they're done, they just get up and walk away. And I'm like, and it's so funny. You know what's wicked funny? You hit a certain age, and like you hear the voices of your childhood like in your head, right? So like I hear things in my head like, what do you live in a barn? If we left the door open, like, if you ever ran out the door and like you would just leave the door open, right? Somebody, usually my stepfather would be like, what do you live in a barn? Oh my God. Like all these things come flooding back into my head. And it makes me think about like something else that my stepfather used to say. Look, the man did not get a lot right. The man did not, he got so many things wrong. A few things, a few nuggets, a golden nugget slipped through though. And one thing he taught me in all of us is he used to say, don't do it half-ass. Don't do things half-ass. Like if you're gonna do it, take the time to do it right. And I really do believe that. And I really do stand by that. And look, I get it. There's gonna be times when you're running out the door and you got to slap a PB&J together and you're not making yourself, you know what I mean? Like you might leave some crumbs on the counter. I get it. I get it. But what kind of a world would we live in if people cared the most? If people left each other and the place and the animals and everything better? If people didn't do stuff half-ass, how different of a world would we live in? And we can't sit around waiting for everybody else to change first. That's not how shit gets changed. We have to recognize when we recognize, oh, there's a problem here. It's not like, oh, well, it's their problem. It's their fault. They have to fix this. Now, in some cases, of course, yes, there are times when it's not your problem to fix. Like you can't make another person get sober, right? Just as an example, like they've got to want to do it. They've got to want to do it for their own reasons. You can't make somebody change. Okay. I'm at Target the other day. This one was like, look. I'm like holding up my hands like, look. I don't know where to begin with this one because I think it's a confluence of like of a lot of different problems. Maybe Target is just having a hard time hiring people. Maybe they don't have enough staff. And I think it's a combination, right? Of like not enough employees, not enough people on the floor, maybe paired with some employees, not enough employees that actually give a crap, paired with a culture of people who are growing more and more entitled and maybe lazy and maybe like I said, have kind of like given up. I don't know. I'm just going to tell you my experience and what it was like. Okay. So I'm walking through and I noticed that there's these t-shirts and I got a couple last summer. And I was like, oh, new colors, right? And they're usually cheap. They're like $8 or something. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go check them out. As I'm walking over to the table, I am horrified, like horrified. I don't even know if a single shirt, and I'm talking there's got to be easily 200 shirts on this table. You know how normally in a store, the colors will be separated by it'll be like, oh, the red ones and the yellow ones and the white ones and the blue ones and the green ones and the tan ones and the black ones and the gray ones, whatever. And they're all folded. And at the top, it's like extra small, medium, large, extra large, 2XL, like whatever. And normally you would just go in and you'd be like, oh, the pink ones, I love that one. And you'd go medium or whatever, and you'd pull your thing out. I go over and I see this pile of shirts. And two things automatically, maybe three things automatically happen. Number one, I'm like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, and when I looked around, I'm not kidding. I'm not even exaggerating. Like storytellers, we could sometimes exaggerate a little bit for effect. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, okay? And I try not to exaggerate too much. Like we'll say like, oh my God, it was like 80,000 mosquitoes. Well, no, it wasn't 80,000, but you know what we're saying. Okay, but I'm being dead serious. I look over and underneath every rack of clothes pretty much, right? There's like 3 or 4 or 5 clothes just on the floor. It was like a bomb had gone off. All right, that's an exaggeration. It was like something happened at Target. And I was just like, what the? So first of all, I'm just like, what is going on? Number two, I go over and I'm horrified. I'm horrified for the poor person whose section this is, who hasn't come into work yet and hasn't seen what has been left behind for them to deal with. And then another part of me kind of gets this hit like, are they just completely overwhelmed over here? Do they just not care? Like all these scenarios are running through my head. Like, why is this happening? And then almost spontaneously and automatically, I start to separate the clothes by color and I start to fold them. And I'm not kidding when I tell you, I'm about 10 minutes in when I realize I don't have all day to be solving this problem. Now, I'm not going to leave it worse off than I found it, but I can't fix it because I don't have an hour to stand here folding all of these shirts that I know a bunch of people are just going to, first of all, because I don't work at Target. I said to my sweetie, I said to my sweetie, Target should hire people like me as floaters who just walk around the store straightening things out. Because I am like a person on a mission. Like I will find what rack that shirt came from and I will re-rack it on the right sized hanger so that the size on the jacket or the shirt or the pants matches the little tab on the hanger. And I will find the set. Was it in clearance? Was it clearance 30% off or 70% off? I will find it and I will put it back in its home. I'm like, you should just hire like little elves, little magical elves that come in at night and like put the store back together. But I realized like, cause that doesn't bother, like I get a sense of satisfaction leaving things better. But it dawned on me about 10 minutes in, like some security guy on camera right now is like, what is this? What is this person doing? And I'm sure like the other people there are like, what is going on? I just couldn't leave it the way that I found it. I didn't completely fix it because I didn't have the time, but I tried to leave it a little bit better. And I furthermore went back into the other area to the men's section, and there were 5 shopping carts. There was one person working the try-on room. What's that called? The fitting room. And they had a huge pile of clothes in front of them and they were folding them. And I just thought, this is the hell that does not end for you. And then there were 5 shopping carts overloaded, overloaded with shoes and hats and toys and clothes. I was just like, has this just become like the dumping ground over here in the fitting room? Oh my God, I felt so bad for that girl. And then every other section I went in, like over by the water bottles, I'm like, there's a dog bowl. And over in like, you know, whatever, the chip aisle, there's like marinara. So like people are just like, what, deciding halfway through, I don't want this. And they won't walk it back to the section. They just leave their shit everywhere like a trail, like a nightmare Hansel and Gretel just leaving like bad breadcrumbs like wherever they go. And I was like, oh my God. Now we're coming down to the micro level of the individual. Of like, I'm like, do people just not care how they leave things? Do people not think about the people coming up behind them? Do people not care about their own personal integrity and how they show up in the world? So this is an invitation. Like, you know, like I was just walking around like, who does this? That's what I was saying. I kept going, who does this? Like, who does this? I know it sounds judgy. I don't mean to judge my fellow humans. But there's some behaviors that I just think like, you're not really thinking about anybody else. And that to me is what gets us in trouble with ourselves, with our friends and our families and our partnerships, our relationships, in our businesses, as a country. When we just don't give a shit about the kind of culture that we are creating individually and then within a family and then within a larger neighborhood community system, this is how we get in trouble. This is a very slippery slope. Because if you start to let shit consistently, now I know there's extenuating circumstances. There are just times when you're in a rush or something's happened, and I get it. You got to run out the door, like whatever. I get it. I'm not here like wagging my finger at everybody. But I do want us to slow down and think about like what a difference it is for us as humans and our nervous systems when we feel like this other person, this community, this business, this culture, this government, this group, these teachers, whoever actually care. They care about me and they care about how they're leaving things. They care about the environment. They care about these animals. They care about these humans. It's a very powerful thing. Now, we can't control what other people do, but we can hold ourselves to a particular standard. We can ask ourselves, what kind of person am I? And when did I normalize leaving shit just everywhere and not caring about the person? And I know some of you, I know people, I get it. I lean a little bit more on one end of the spectrum, which is like, I'm the person who literally like makes my bed when I'm at a hotel, right? I used to work in the hotel industry. So I know what it's like for the housekeepers. So when I leave, and again, I'm not tooting my own horn like I'm special. I'm giving you examples of like the different ends of the spectrum, right? So when I leave a hotel room, okay, I basically, I like take, like, if it's like, I'll take the comforter off. Sometimes I'll take the sheets off the bed. I don't always go that far, but I make sure it's neat. I do put all my towels that have been used on the floor, right? I wipe down the surfaces. If I usually don't use the cups or things like that, but I put everything back. I put the do not disturb sign, like back where it goes. I leave the place. So when that person comes in to clean that room, and leave a tip, right? Leave a tip, a gratuity, a little, I see you and I appreciate you. And I know this job is hard and you got to put up with some bullshit from some humans who are entitled and think, because people will say things like this. It's not my job. This is why they have the job. Like that's their job, is to clean this up. It's like, no. Their job is to make the room ready for the next person. But they don't want to have to like clean up all your shit because you decided to be a slob. So there's a particular standard we can kind of hold ourselves to that extends beyond just our own experience. As long as we're only thinking about ourselves, we are not creating a culture of caring or a culture that cares the most. And again, how different would it be for children, for humans, for the seniors and elderly, for animals, for the mountains and the streams and the trees and the environment, if we adopted a culture that cares the most? But you know what it would mean? It would mean you would have to slow down. It would mean you would have to slow down so that you can actually do a decent job. And so you can actually be aware of the wake of destruction that you are leaving behind you. And you'd have to be willing to take a look at your behavior so far. The good news is about humans is we can change at any point as long as there is air in your body and consciousness, right? In your mind, right? We can change, even if we're only changing on the mind level, because all minds are joined. And if one mind changes, magic happens, miracles can happen. So it's an opportunity for us to reflect on, am I a part of the culture that is leaving it better? When I die, I hope that, I hope that people aren't like, I'm so glad she's gone because she just left a mess wherever she went, right? Like, hopefully, my being here, I'm not going to say it was always a blessing for everybody because trust me, I've been selfish. We've all done things in our lives, when we look back, we think like, man, I blew that. I could have done that better, right? But hopefully, we're leaving. Hopefully I'm going to leave myself better. I've grown, right? I've changed. I've done some work. I've thought about some things. I've made amends. I've apologized. I try to do things better. So hopefully I'm leaving myself better, right? Hopefully I'm leaving the animals better. I mean, being vegan for like over 20 years, it's because I don't want to participate in the suffering of my fellow beings who I love so much, who don't have a voice and who can't speak up and who can't say, stop raping me, stop murdering me, stop slaughtering me, stop hurting me, stop putting me in these conditions that are brutal, stop testing on me, right? Stop burning me, stop, stop putting me in gas chambers, stop all the horrible things that we do to animals, circuses and the zoos and like so much, right? And hopefully, I'm leaving the environment better. Hopefully, we can all do better. Let me put it this way. We can all do better. So this is an invitation where you get to ask yourself, we're moving into the final quarter of the year, September, October, November, December. We have 4 months to kind of wrap up this year in a more mindful and aligned with our true core values way. So it's a chance to like check in and be like, yeah, have I been that person who just kind of throws shit back on the pile and back on the shelf and I don't hang it up and I do it half-ass and da 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 da. And maybe you don't care. Like maybe those things don't matter to you. But it doesn't have to be about you. It's about the other people that you share the earth in the world with, because they all matter too. So I hope that in some way, from me sharing the people, like my little peanut rock, the people who get it really, really, really right, who go the extra mile, who go above and beyond, who do fantastic customer care. And if you know if you've had an amazing customer client experience, I could tell you a bunch. But these were the ones that were just clustered, like they just happened most recently. But if you've had an amazing experience, I hope you leave a review for somebody. I hope that you do a recommendation or a referral for somebody if they have been doing a fantastic job for you in some sphere, in some way of knowing them. And whether it's like a friendship or your sweetie or a business or whatever, and it's one of the reasons why some of you may know that I'm starting a new adventure where I'm going to be working at a company called Flexible. It's flexible assisted stretching and wellness studio. And I've been hanging out with the owner and the other people who work there for the past month or so. And, when I was interviewing with them, it's like I'm checking them out as much as they're checking me out, right? And one of the things I realized right away is that they really do care. They really do care about their clients, and they care about keeping the place clean and tidy, and they care about their level of care and their quality of interaction and the way that they leave people better than how they found them. They don't use those words, but I could see one of these principles that mean a lot to me in action. And it's one of the reasons why I decided to work there. Plus it's wicked fun and I get to get my hands on people. But anyways, like when I see it in action, I like to call it out. So here's an invitation to care the most. Care the most and leave yourself. And let's just let's wrap it up just like this. And before I go though, it's important that I say this before I forget. So if you heard at the front end of my last episode, I was talking about the challenge, the 30-day challenge that I'm doing. It starts right Sunday, September 1st. It's a 30-day challenge called The Good, the Beautiful, and the Holy. It's going to be so much fun. It's only $5. And you get 2 live calls with me. You get a dedicated fun Facebook group for community and connection. You get an amazing PDF. Do I have the PDF right here? Oh, I do. I'll hold it up real quick. For those of you who are watching, right? It's a 16-page PDF. It's so fantastic. I would love to have you join us. It would be so amazing. And so if you want the link, just reach out, use my contact page on my website, whatever, and say you want the link and we'll get you set up. A bunch of people have signed up and it's going to be so great. And it's going to be a way to kind of change, how we see ourselves and how we see the world around us. So I'm wicked excited about that. Also, if you want to show support to the show, obviously you can go leave a review. You can do those things. You can also use my new tip jar, and it's KarenKenney.com/tip jar. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you so much. And as I always say, as I sign off, wherever you go, may you leave yourself and the other people and the animals and the environment better than how you found it. Wherever you go, may you be a blessing. Bye.